What up, guys? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. It's Thursday afternoon, December the 6th, 2018, and not a lot of action in college football for about 2 weeks or so. We're getting ready for the bowl games, which will be coming to us starting on December 15th, which is actually Carolina Jackpot's birthday, which is a great thing. There's about 5 games that day, and I'll be doing my picks and predictions against the spread on those 5 games sometime in the middle of next week, talking Tuesday, Wednesday-ish. It won't be a real long video because there's not a lot of games. One that I wanted to talk about, the Army-Navy game. That's coming up this Saturday in Lincoln Financial Field, Philadelphia. Look at the weather report. It's supposed to be 36 degrees and sunny in Philadelphia. We're getting ready for some maybe snow, perhaps ice, bad weather. Here in South Carolina, we know how it'll all do. It'll last for about 3 or 4 hours probably, and then it'll turn 60 degrees and melt. However, it's supposed to be sunny in Philadelphia. It's good football weather for the Army-Navy game. Looking at this one, this year's matchup, you've got 2 teams that seem to be headed on totally different paths. Army comes in at 9-2. The Navy comes in 3-9. They've actually already played 12 regular season games. This will be the 13th game. Looking at common opponents between the two, both teams have played Hawaii. Navy played at Hawaii earlier in the season and lost. I think it was in week 2. Army actually handed Hawaii their first defeat of the year at home. And both teams have played Air Force. Army beat Air Force 17-14, and Navy lost to them, I believe it was 38-7. So their Army's 2-0 against common opponents versus Navy. But, this is always a really good game for the most part. It's a tight matchup. There have been a few blowouts over the years. Navy leads the overall series, something like 61-50, and I'm not sure how many ties there were, but most of those 11 have come within the past 15 years or so. Navy held quite a lengthy winning streak over Army in that series for quite some time. And Army's got their football program back up off the ground now in a really good way with head coach Jeff Monken. Who knows if that guy will still be there next year to coach the brave old Army team. Both teams averaging right around 300 yards per game on the ground. Of course, Navy doing it with Malcolm Perry. Donnell Woolfolk is the workhorse for the cadets of Army and the Black Knights. Passing-wise, both passing offenses are anemic, averaging under 100 a game. Navy is actually giving up quite a few more passing yards than Army has, and that is mostly due to the teams that they play in that conference. They're in the American Athletic Conference, so, they're giving up a lot of passing yards there to teams such as UCF, Houston, and the like. They did have a really good win earlier in the year against a Memphis team that would end up competing for the Atlantic Conference ACC I keep calling them ACC, American Athletic Conference Championship. However, they only won 2 more games throughout the rest of the course of the season. Just really disappointing for Coach Ken Niumatalolo and the midshipman there. Niumatalolo is a coach that back before South Carolina hired Coach Boone, I was actually hoping that this guy would come to Columbia. I know I don't think he was ever interviewed. I don't think he was ever interested. And I actually expressed my opinion on that on a radio show here in the upstate. And, I was laughed at because you'll never have the kind of players that are coming to South Carolina that are going to want to play that kind of offense, blah, blah, blah. Well, hey, you know what? He's winning games with it, so what's it matter? But I didn't know at the time, and Niumatalolo's religious values kind of keep him tied around Navy, and I think he was perhaps going to go to Brigham Young at one time. But anyway, what this rivalry means to me, when you look at that, and I heard somebody say it on the air the other day, this is the only game that you can watch where all 22 players will be on the field, on the ground, on the opening kickoff after the ball. And it's also the only game that you'll ever see where everybody that is on the field would give their life for everyone that's in the stands watching at home on TV. That's some great stuff. This one it means a lot more than a lot of people realize, I think. None of these teams, neither one of them, are going to put a bunch of talent in the NFL. One of them may have one player like every 5 years or something make it in the NFL. They have commitments they have to fulfill after graduation. So the NFL is pretty much out for these guys. They're playing for the love of the game and the love of the school and their respective institutions. I totally get that. I think it's freaking awesome. I had a book one time. I don't have it anymore, sadly. It was by John Feinbaum, I believe was his name, or Feinstein. He's an author that's written some sports books. If you can find that online, go check it out. That book was called A Civil War, Army versus Navy. And what he did was chronicle, he spent time with the 1995 Army team, the 1995 Navy team, and pretty much chronicled their whole seasons from summer practice all the way through the season, each game. He devoted a chapter to each game for each team, and then finally culminating in the game at the end of the year, which was won by Army by 1 point. And it was a really good book, and I used to read that thing all the time, especially back before, I was watching YouTube videos all the time at night time to go to sleep, and now I do that, and I listen to podcasts and stuff like that. But back then, 10, 15 years ago, I used to have this book, and I would read it all the time. I just read one little chapter a night, just one excerpt from it. I must have read that thing 50 times over. I mean, the cover was literally like flaking off in my hands, that it had been read so many times. And sadly, either I don't have it anymore or I don't know where it's at. But if I'd encourage you, I'm sure it's out of print now, to go find that, A Civil War, Army versus Navy. If you're a college football fan, you need to read that. Find it on the ebook or somewhere like your iBooks or somewhere like that. That's an awesome read. I spent some time at the Citadel back in the mid-1990s. I didn't graduate, but I did attend there. And I actually went to a game at West Point. That's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my entire life and all my traveling. I mean, it's the place, the aura. It's a great place to go see a college football game. We know about Navy. They spoiled South Carolina season years and years ago, and they've had some really good teams. I believe they will once again. However, this year's game, going looking at it, picking the spread. Army, their schedule, I don't think has been quite as tough as Navy's, but it's still sneaky good. It's still been sneaky good. They almost knocked off Oklahoma, a really tough opponent. And then you got to look down at their losses. The other one was against Duke on the road by 10 points to open up the season. Not a bad loss. Not a bad loss at all for Army. They've beaten some really good teams too, some bowl teams. The Eastern Michigan team they beat was good. They've beaten both the participants in the MAC championship game, Miami of Ohio, in overtime, and they handled my team, the Buffalo Bulls, the one that I always take the spread with there. They actually beat an undefeated team too in Colgate. Now, yeah, Colgate is FCS, but they did handle them with ease, and they were undefeated at the time. So looking at that, looking at what we've seen all year long from these two teams, I got to go with Army in this one, but I think they're going to cover the spread too. I think it'll be about a 10 to 14-point victory. It's not going to be a blowout because none of these games are really honestly blowouts, but I believe that the Black Knights are going to take this one on Saturday in Philadelphia, and my prediction, final score, Army 31, Navy 21. That's it. Make sure you watch that game. If you don't watch one all year long, if you don't watch any bowl games, make sure you tune in on December 8th and watch Army versus Navy. You will not be disappointed. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Carolina Jackpot checking out. Peace, and I'm out. Go Gamecocks and go Coach Boom.